And now I'd really like to introduce our keynote speaker, Chris Stowe, the CEO of Blind. Just met Chris for the first time this morning, but I do know that he advocates interdisciplinary knowledge of design, business, education, entrepreneurship, and humanity. And he's lectured all over the world and helps creatives understand how to get more business savvy. So today he's here to share his views on that. And in particular, since I had a few words with him before, I think he's come up with some ways to contextualize his discussion so it's maybe relevant to some of the things facing our industry right now. So without further ado, Chris, please.
Okay, is the mic on? You guys can hear me okay? All right. My talk is called Disruption and Innovation, and I know I have 30 minutes. I've been told now I have a little bit more time than that, but I have a deck already prepared. And usually I speak for 5 hours, so this 30 minutes is a sprint for me. We have to move really fast. It's because I have 131 slides. Don't worry, it's mostly words, and you have nothing to worry about. It's just words. Okay, anyways, there are 4 major parts in my introduction. My name is Chris Stowe, and I am a time traveler from the future. Half of the statement is true. My company is actually called The Futur. And what I want to say to you is time is relative, that the faster you move, time appears to slow down. You can see things more clearly. So I'm going to tell you what happens 30 minutes from now. What you do with this information is entirely up to you. Okay, a couple of things I've noticed about the future. One is everybody's spending time on mobile. If you're not thinking about mobile, you will be out of the race. We spend, on average, over 150 minutes per day. It's probably the first thing you saw today, and most likely the last thing you see tonight. Next, think platforms over products. What you want to do is you want to build communities. And why is that? Because communities empower people to express themselves, allows them to share and stay in contact with one another. There's the rise of the creative class. And more people will join the creative class. This woman is Bonnie Sang. She has a very interesting story. She's a self-taught photographer. She's a divorced single mom and facing depression. She was encouraged to pick up a hobby, to learn photography. So she started shooting. And a few short years later, Bonnie has amassed an amazing following on the internet. On Pinterest alone, she has over 7 million followers. That's power for you. So she also has a following on Instagram, about 78,000, growing every single day. What's really cool is she's been able to work with great clients like The Gap and Estee Lauder, and they buy into her, not for her technical skill, but for her story and how she empowers women to pursue a creative life. What's startling about Bonnie when you talk to her is she uses no lights. She insists on this when working with clients, and she mostly shoots with her iPhone. And she edits her images using a free app called Snapseed and also VSCO. So what you need to know about the future is everyone is a creator. Think about how you're going to empower them and embrace them in the things that you do. A couple other things to think about. YouTube stats. 6 out of 10 people prefer online video over TV. There are 400 hours of video uploaded every single minute. 50% of that traffic is on mobile, and there are 1 billion video views per day. And this number keeps growing. It's doubled since last year. How are you addressing the creators on YouTube? Machine learning. We're scared of machine learning. The robots actually are here to help humans, is my belief, okay? So machine learning can do lots of things. You need to start thinking about how to incorporate machine learning to your advantage. Data mining, looking at vast amounts of data that human beings cannot do. Algorithms that are predictive in their nature. Classification, organizing images so that human beings don't have to. They learn about us. They're intelligent. And they're autonomous. They reduce repetitive tasks. Now, it's amazing to me that Google can actually read my mind. So when I type in what happens to, I screen captured this, and it fills it in. A dream deferred. What happens to Theon Greyjoy? Or a dog who eats table scraps. So think about this. In your search engine, are you being predictive? Can you read my mind? Can you read my mind? It's not enough to have lots and lots of images because that works against us. The more options we have, it's the paradox of choice. Help me out. Predict what I want. Also learn about my interests. I'm always amazed too on Amazon. It knows what kind of books I like to buy. It learns about me all the time, and it's getting better at it. A couple years ago, they rolled out this other feature, which helped me out a lot too, because I'm forgetful, I'm getting older, right? Is that it tells me I've already bought the book. Have you guys bought multiple books before? Yeah. And then my wife's like, oh, you didn't even read the first book, now you have 2 copies. Okay, machine learning here. I don't know if you guys saw this last year at Adobe Max. Adobe showed off something called Adobe Sensei for Photoshop. I just can't wait for this to happen. This is a sketch made by an artist. And by my eye, I could barely tell what's going on. But the computer is actually smarter than me. It sees a woman, it sees space, a spacesuit, hands, and face. Look at I guess you can't see, it's kind of small. The keywords it's been able to tag up, and it finds images in your library that matches those criteria. It can intelligently identify and rank images based on relevancy. That's pretty scary and cool at the same time. And lastly, it can search your library to find the highest probable match. It auto-masks images, provides options, intelligently sorting your images together. That is a future I look forward to. So we don't need to be afraid of the machines, we need to make them our friends. Okay? He's pretty friendly, right? Yes. In Terminator 2, he's very friendly. Okay, I'm sorry, spoiler. Okay. Personalization, realize that one size doesn't fit all, create tailored experience for users. I'm going to share with you a few companies that are doing this and they're breaking through. One is called Blueprint. They create customized juice cleanses based on your level of intensity, your diet, and even on taste. So they've created 6 different programs depending on how you like to cleanse. This is 4 of them. Ministry of Supply. Anybody heard of Ministry of Supply? No? Okay. It's on-demand 3D print knit. That means it's built to order, made to measure, there's little waste. It's incredible. The Nike ID program, which I'm sure you guys are all familiar with, allows you to customize your shoes into a dizzying array of options. And lastly, one I'm sure you're aware of is the Coca-Cola Share a Coke. An initiative that started a few years ago invites you to share a Coke with a friend. So personalization is key. And the last thing I want to talk about, 30 minutes into the future, what I've seen is that advertising is dead. It is dead, dead, dead. And you need to understand that, and you need to embrace that, and you need to work around that. If you service the advertising industry, you may be in trouble. I used to as well. I'll tell you more about that later. So the problem with advertising, it's intrusive, it's not measurable, and it's not getting the results you want. Because people, in fact, love to buy, but they hate being sold to, okay? So the number one mistake of marketing is to treat social media like advertising. Okay, so here's a quick recap here. Before moving on to part 2, think mobile first, think platforms over products, embrace the rise of the creative class, how we're using machine learning to help you in your business, personalization, get to know me, anticipate my needs, and to realize that advertising is dead. I will be touching upon these a little bit more throughout the rest of my talk today. I think I'm doing pretty good on time, which is remarkable. Okay. My friends who usually travel with me and shoot, they're like, Chris, you can never finish a talk on time. So I'm talking super fast this morning. Okay, the creation story. David Trott writes in his book, 1 + 1 = 3, that creative people are really great at connecting dots. That's what we do. We see something over here, we read about something over there, and we're able to connect those 2 things. Your level of creativity depends on your ability to connect seemingly disparate ideas. The problem with creative people is not so much that we cannot connect dots, is we don't have enough dots to connect. So what we need to do is we need to have more dots. So here I am from the future. I'm trying to tell you about as much as I can. So somewhere later on, maybe on your drive or flight home, you'll be thinking about things and be able to connect the dots yourself. So this next part I've broken into 3 acts. Act 1 starts with a drive home with my wife. I've been teaching a 5 or 6 hour class at Art Center, and I was energized, I was just happy, and the students make me come alive. And my wife leans into me, because I asked her, what did you think of class? I was looking for some praise or some validation or something like that. That was foolish of me. She goes on to say, you know, I love the class. Everything's so great. How did you come up with these ideas? And I'm like, yeah, tell me more. But then she adds that word that I hate so much, but. So using the word but negates everything that comes before, right? She became a butthole. So she says, but I just feel like you're wasting your talent. You're not living up to your potential. I'm like angry. I'm like, what do you mean by that? Well, you teach 7 or 8 students at a time. And you do this semester after semester, year after year. I've been teaching for 15 years. So she took me from a high, just dragged me down to the low. So I went through the 5 stages of grieving. Started with denial, led to anger, bargaining, depression. And the rest of the trip home, driving across the 10 freeway, was mostly in silence, just me thinking. I pretended not to be bothered by it because I just turned the music up a little louder. And I was just thinking. Now, she didn't have the answer for me, which is what bothered me about that observation. She just brought up the problem. This leads me to Act 2. Act 2, in 2014, something crazy happened. I was hit by a tropical storm, Hurricane Jose. Have you guys heard of Hurricane Jose? Probably not. Yeah. Hurricane Jose Caballer. This is a friend of mine. He comes back into my life after not seeing him for over 10 years. And we're working together, and he says, Chris, I had this idea. You need to get from behind the camera, and you need to get in front of the camera. We got to get on YouTube, man. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm an introvert. I make commercials and music videos. I'm not in them. He has a hard time hearing, so I say even louder, no. So he's like, why? Why not? Well, let me just outline what could go wrong, okay? Now, I'm not used to speaking. I'm quite shy. I'm good with working with small groups, but not with big groups. I don't want to look like a fool. Isn't this just a waste of time? Aren't there only amateurs on YouTube? So all the parts of denial and anger are just rearing its head right now. What if I say something, because my mouth is prone to say something, where I alienate clients who pay and support my way of living? I mean, what do I even say? I'm not used to doing this. And what's the ROI on this, ever being the entrepreneur, the business person? I'm not going to do this. Never, ever. Act 3, we're on YouTube. So we're making videos on YouTube. Jose lured me into it by saying, you don't have to do anything. I just want you to sit there. We'll roll the cameras. I'll do all the talking. When you're comfortable enough, say something. So those first few episodes, I sat there, jaw clenched, aching afterwards, like, oh, God. I'm so mindful of the words that I'm using. But I still want support, and I make the mistake again. I asked my wife, did you watch the videos? What'd you think? She paused for a little bit, and she said, your videos are unwatchable. She says, I love you, honey, but I can't watch it. You guys are totally rambling on. They're totally unfocused, and I want to make it to the end, but I just cannot. So disappointing. Okay, fine. So I started to write. I took producing videos on YouTube seriously now. Instead of doing it because I was told to do it, because somebody else had insisted on doing it, I made some effort. I wondered to myself, do efforts equal results? How does that work out? This is the first episode that I wrote. It's called Identity Design and Branding. And it became a major turning point in our YouTube career. This was the big change point, the inflection moment. To date, that video that I just shared has 2.8 million minutes of views, 460,000 views. It's a #1 ranked search for identity design. It's also the #5 ranked search for branding. So when I first started, we typed in branding on YouTube. Do you know what the results were? Women with tattoos and cows having a brand stuck on them. And now we're probably 3 or 4 of the top search results on YouTube for such a generic word, branding and identity design. So it turns out there was an appetite and a need for the content we were creating. We just needed to make it. Encouraged by the results, I decided to see if I could do it again. I mean, anybody can get lucky one time. So I made another video called My First Design Portfolio. This one did even better than the first one. It has 4.8 million minutes, 858,000 views. #1 ranked search for design portfolio. Number 5 ranked search for the word portfolio. As broad as that is, wow, something's happening here. I could feel it. So what did we learn? So I'd like to share some things that we learned. Number 1 is we used to make videos to sell products. Does that sound familiar? We used to make videos to sell products, and they were not that cleverly disguised. We would hint at solutions, we'd talk about something for an hour, and dovetail into a product pitch right at the end. This thing is strange because I keep thinking I need to speak into it. I don't, obviously. Okay. We also used to make videos to self-promote. So these two things, selling and self-promotion, sound a lot like advertising. And our audience rewarded us, or in truth, punished us for it. They didn't watch. They didn't share. They didn't comment. This is where I started to learn something about social media, something that we all need to be very savvy about. Is what we're doing is asking for their attention and their time. The two most valuable things somebody has, your time. You can't get more of it, right? So what we have to do is we have to do a value exchange. I have to trade value for your attention and time. And I can't do that by selling and pitching to you the entire time. So there's some rules about this. There's just two things that you need to do when you make a piece of content. You need to educate or entertain. And if you can entertain while educating, that's even better. Something else that I realized is that we needed to find our white space. There's these gaps in the marketplace that are left unfulfilled, ripe for the picking. All you have to do is walk in there and grab it. So what we saw there were very famous YouTube creators. We're pretty late in the game for creating content for YouTube. They're charismatic. They know how to shoot well. They know how to edit. They know how to engage with the audience. They know the platforms. They speak natively. But what they did was they lacked experience. Most of them were young. This is what they wanted to do. They wanted to be entertainers. Now on the other side, there were celebrated designers, people we looked up to, people who were considered masters of design, the ones that people write books about. They were very experienced, but they had no interest or time to produce content for YouTube. Just like me. Our white space was somewhere in the middle. What we wanted to do was leverage our experience in design, our experience with making videos and commercials, and to step in front of the camera and start to write content and risk it all. Be totally transparent and vulnerable to everybody that's watching, and risk possibly alienating every single client we ever had. The results? To date, we have 370,000 subscribers on YouTube. We don't do any cat videos. There are no exploitation films. There are no fail compilations. Just content on educating creatives on how to run their business. The mic, you don't like the way the mic looks? Is it better now? Okay, thank you. All right. We've also now built up a following of about 74,000 followers on Facebook. And if you're sitting there wondering, because I know there's some skeptic, cynical people in the audience, I can tell. You have lines on your face. I can see it. Okay? Does influence equal money? Because it's nice to have influence, but what's that worth? Well, let me show you something. This is a graph. This is an actual screenshot comped into an image of the hockey stick growth that everybody wants. Look at what happens in year 1 and year 2. You see that? See what happens there in year 3? When we actually take things seriously and we try to make content and create value for other people. So I know that the slide is small, so let me just make a graphic. So here's our revenue from 2014. 2014, that entire year, we made $15,000, a whopping $15,000. And that's okay because I had this other business called Blind when we're doing about $5 million of business, so that was totally okay. Now look what happens 4 years forward. 2015, we did 42,000. 2016, 144,000. Last year, we did 536,000. This is 300% growth year over year. When people tell me about the growth and they're growing 30%, I smile and laugh a little bit. Okay? So what are we going to do in 2018? We're projected to do $1.6 million. This new business, this side hobby that I've created accidentally, is going to displace our original business. So much so that we've made a conscientious decision to no longer do client work. Okay? So let me recap some of these things in these 3 acts for you. One is to have more dots to connect and then be brave enough to connect them. Lean into what makes you uncomfortable because that's where the magic lives. We all need a Jessie, which is my wife, a truth teller, somebody to tell us that things are wrong and that you suck, and to be okay with that. Okay? And we're making stuff to share with other people. Use this guiding principle. Educate or entertain. Educate or entertain. Don't sell, don't advertise, don't market. Finally, there's a lot of undiscovered country out there. You just have to be willing to look. Find your white space. Part 3. I don't know if I'm so happy because I'm actually on track. I can't believe this. I just can't believe this. There's time for questions, so I'm going to do questions, okay? Disrupt yourself. Okay, here's the truth you need to know. What got you here won't get you there, and we need to get there. So the patterns of the past are not a good indication as to where you need to go into the future. And what Guy Kawasaki talks about is you can't iterate your way to innovation. What you have to do is you have to jump the curve. So here's a couple of companies that failed to jump the curve. They were all leaders in their space. They were most likely to innovate and disrupt their own industry and to lead to the next wave. They were supposed to jump the curve and they did not. So Western Union, being a telegram company, should have been an internet service provider. And Blockbuster, renting videos, should have become Netflix, and they lost out. And Tower Records should have become Spotify, serving music to people in the way that they want. And lastly, Kodak should have become Sony. So some interesting facts about Kodak. You may have heard some of this before. Just pretend like you haven't, okay? Kodak was founded by George Eastman in 1888. This is a 100+ year legacy of film. And in 2012, they filed Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. What's interesting is the thing that killed them was the thing that they invented. They were replaced by digital cameras. Turns out an engineer working for them, Steve Sasson, invented the digital camera in 1975. When I learned about this, I just thought, how tragic. Somebody brings you the future and you close the door on them. The executives at that time could not see a world without film. I want to ask you guys this question. When's the last time you loaded a roll of film into a camera?
I got one here.
You do? Are you the only person? And what are you doing stuck in the past? There's 2 people in here, I think, out of 150 people. Those are your percentages, right? Here's what they failed to learn. Okay, they feared cannibalization. They were making a lot of money in the high margin of film versus the low margin of digital cameras. They put too much emphasis on the short-term gain versus the long-term goal. They had this wonderful tagline that I almost forgot about. The tagline was, a Kodak moment. And if they truly embraced that phrase, a Kodak moment, they would have realized Kodak is more than just a manufacturer of film. That their mission should have been defined as to capture and preserve memories. So I find that when you write your mission, whatever it is that you guys go and do in your retreats, the way you define yourself will determine where you go as a company. So choose those words very, very carefully. Another story, Dr. Price Pritchett. He wrote the book, U to the Second Power, a high-velocity formula for multiplying your personal effectiveness in quantum leaps. So he's sitting in a small inn outside of Toronto, and he witnessed a life and death struggle. Just a few feet away from where he was standing, or sitting, a fly was burning out the last bits of its life. It was trying to break through a glass window pane. The buzzing of its wing told the story of the fly. Try harder. Now we all know this, no matter how hard it tried, the fly was doomed to die in a futile attempt to escape. It was impossible, obviously, to break through the glass. But the fly bet its life that it could reach the goal through raw effort and determination. The interesting thing that he noted was that just 10 feet away was an open door. With less effort, the fly could have escaped its self-imposed trap. He wondered what compelled the fly to stay. So it turns out your historically most dependable behaviors can become the major obstacle to future success. What has worked for you in the past will not work for you in the future. So the goal of every organization should be to challenge the core business as protection against external disruption. You need to disrupt yourself. I don't mean this just as a concept. Put this plan into action. Carve out 10-15% of your revenue to disrupt yourself. Here's the good news. If it doesn't work out every year, you're all right. The good news is if it does work out, you disrupt yourself and you own the next market. You've been able to successfully jump the curve. And what you have to do is you have to do the very difficult thing. You have to slaughter the sacred cows. Don't do what Kodak did. Okay? All right. Next up, part 4. Lights, camera, action. Back from my directing days. Have you guys heard of the term design thinking? It's quite buzzy, design thinking. It's a lot of, tricky ways to describe what it is that some people do. Another word that people use for design thinking is user experience design. Everybody tells me, especially in Silicon Valley, it's all UX, man, I'm a product designer. Really? Well, let me boil it down for you so it's just really, really simple. Design thinking, user experience design is based on just 2 simple phrases. Know me, anticipate my needs. Know who your customers are, and figure out what they want before they figure it out themselves. So there's a couple of prompts that you can use to figure out who somebody is. Okay, we go outside the demographics, which is the first thing that people tell. Their age, their sex, their marital status, their income, where they went to school. That's important. But what's more important are their psychographics. Their opinions, their behavior, beliefs, hobbies and interests, jobs and tasks that they're trying to do, both personally and professionally. What does winning mean to them? What does losing mean to them? What's at stake on both ends? And to separate wants from needs. Both are very important. I need a marketing campaign to drive additional revenue of $400,000. That's a need. But I want the respect of my peers. That's the want. Both are very, very important. So this is a simple framework. I don't want to leave you guys here with just some crazy thoughts and nothing to do. So here's the framework. The framework is quite simple. A product designer, share this with me. Just have 3 columns and give it a go. Okay? Ask yourself, what are the tasks of my customers? What do they have to do every single day, both personally and professionally, and write down as many things as you can do. It's kind of a snapshot or a diary into their life, into their world. Just write those things down. And then figure out where the gaps exist between what it is that they're doing and how they could be doing it better, easier, faster, cheaper. And then sit down and brainstorm with your team. Could be a team of 1. Think about where the opportunities are. This is where you need to kind of think pie in the sky. We're not looking backwards, we're looking forward. Okay? You can do the simple exercise yourself. Just pretend you have 0 legacy attached to your company right now. If you were in the stock business today, how would you create that company? That's probably the best piece of advice or way to think about this. If you were starting a company today, what would it look like? Would you even be in stock? What would that look like? Okay? So I've been thinking about this on your behalf. There are 2 principal users, I think, that you need to consider. The content creators. These are the people who have images to sell. They're sellers. What do they want? Well, they want to make money. They want to share work. They want to gain influence and get recognition. They want to see their work on big, important things. They want to be celebrated for the creatives that they are. They want it to be easy. They want it to be seen. Coincidentally, the buyers are also content creators. They want intelligent curation. That somebody has done the work of looking at this. Somebody could be the T1000 model. It doesn't have to be a human being. They want to be able to discover new work, surprise me, anticipate my needs. Know that I like corporate images, or I like candid photos, or really heavily color-corrected images, or something with CG, or things that feel surreal. They want smart search. Anticipate my needs, read my mind. They want images to be affordable, flexible, easy to find, easy to use. And I think they also want something else. but I'll get into that in a little bit. So figure out what the white space exists right now. So when you get to design your company every single day, what's the white space that exists in between those two? Okay? So I have some ideas. It's because I thought I'd be out of time. I'm almost out of time. Okay, white space. So I'm going to help you out. Normally I would say, why don't you guys turn to each other, spend the next 5 minutes. We don't have that kind of time. I'm just going to fast forward to some of the conclusions that I thought about, just for you. This is not a stock lecture. I wrote this specifically for you. Okay? Can stock sites be a brainstorming partner? A lot of us work alone, and we need something smart. We want to throw an idea at something and something to throw back 10 ideas back at us. That's what I love about looking for stock myself. When the library is big enough, when it's curated, when it's intelligent, I love doing this. I go down that rabbit hole. And I surprise myself, which is the best part. Learn about my taste. Perhaps you guys can crowdsource your ranking. Use what Instagram and everybody else is using, those algorithms to drive things up and down. I thought about another idea. I use images, I take them down, and I use stock photography, and I tweak it, I color correct it, I cut it out. I mash it up with other things. It would be fantastic if somebody created a marketplace where I can actually resell that image and split the fees with the original creator. This is the power of the internet. Everything is a remix. I don't think anybody's doing that right now. Predictive search we talked about, curated search results. Moving images. The reason why I shared all this data with you, the stats about YouTube, is what are you doing to service the gazillion creators of videos? One of the toughest things for me as a video creator is lack of resources. I want a very specific shot to convey an idea. Currently, that becomes very difficult for me to do. And last thing I want to talk to you about is if you're thinking about launching another advertising campaign, please, I beg you, do not do it. What you need to do is to close the imagination gap. Give your images away to content creators so that they can teach their people that stock doesn't have to be uncreative. Stock can actually be quite powerful. Okay? The bonus part? Yes, I can do bonus. The Dan Sullivan question. You guys know the Dan Sullivan question? Anybody? Fantastic. Fantastic. I'm going to give you some value today. So Dan Sullivan is a speaker, consultant, strategic planner, and a coach. Okay? So here's his question. It's written about in other books, and he has his own book called The Dan Sullivan Question, written by Dan Sullivan. One day I will have the Christo question. Okay? So it goes something like this. And I'm going to ask you this question, okay? If we were having this discussion 3 years from today, and you're looking back over those 3 years, what has to have happened in your life, both personally and professionally, for you to feel happy with your progress? Okay? So here it is again, clean. If we were having this discussion 3 years from today, and you were looking back over those 3 years, what has to have happened in your life, both personally and professionally, for you to feel happy with your progress? And usually this should excite you. This question is a perfectly designed question to help you envision the future, not be stuck with it in the daily grind that you're stuck in right now. To imagine that. What do you want in your life? Just 3 years, okay? So usually what you want to do is, here's another framework based on that question, to write down your desired future state. Write down everything that comes to your mind. And the last little bit you want to do is to have a success metric attached to each of your goals so that you know when you get there. So don't say, I want to be a better creative. That's so abstract. Okay, so the success metric would be to read 3 books on typography, to attend 2 workshops, and 1 conference or something like that. That's a success metric. Don't say, I want to be financially independent. Say I want to gross $2 million and keep a net revenue of X, net profit of X, okay? I'm gonna leave you with one last final thought here. Change is inevitable. Progress is a choice. That's my 30 minutes of the future. You guys get to decide what you want to do. I have now some time, I'm sorry. Okay. Any questions?
Please wait for the microphone as we're recording this session. So
Okay.
we want to be able to look back and hear all the questions.
I realized when Jeff was presenting, he had baked in all the credits to every image, which is something I never do, so I understand. I'm sorry, guys. Don't stone me, please.
It kind of goes with the territory.
You know, some things are taken from stock that I paid for, so I don't know where I got it from. Okay, any questions? Ophelia? Is it on?
Is it on?
Yes.
Okay. What was the biggest failure and what did you get out of that failure?
I was trying to be very optimistic. You want to go straight for the failure conversation?
Asian like your wife, okay? But,
Give me some context
okay.
about failure.
Say for instance, when we teach our students, we say, okay, a success is really good, but you don't learn a lot from it. You just happen to have all these things combined to create that. But when students fail, they get afraid to do something.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So what have you failed at that has brought you forward?
Okay. When somebody asks inevitably, what's your greatest failure? I always have a very difficult time answering that question. Okay? And it's not because I've not failed, but I hardwire in my brain different words attached to failure. Failure is a sign of progress. Failure is a sign of growth. Not failing, always succeeding is actually a sign of stagnation. What is it? It's just, in his book, Dr. Price Pritchett talks about this. He says, the moments that precede a major breakthrough, a major quantum leap forward in your life and your career is full of ambiguity, anxiety, nervousness, and fear and apprehension. And that's how you know you're moving down the right path. So to your students who are always doing something, they're like, I got this, they're just being very complacent or not really pushing themselves. So what I didn't have time to share, because I have to edit this talk down really tight, is all the stupid things that we tried to do. So you see, here's the history of it. Is Blind was started in 1995, and we rode the boom times of making commercials. And it was just money falling all over the place. You know, I paid for my house and 2 buildings. Fantastic. But I started to see a decline, and I'm very sensitive. I'm like that canary in the coal mine. I can sense, ooh, the market is shifting. What happened was Skool started pumping out more and more students to enter in the field. So supply was far outstripping demand. In conjunction with that, what's happening is how we consume stuff now. We're not sitting in front of the TV, we're streaming content, commercial free, we're, what is that called, time displacing all the commercials. So the thing that I'm doing is actually killing my own industry because nobody watches that anymore. We don't believe in commercials anymore because we can validate everything. Every time you've had to make a major purchase in your life, you don't sit there and like, I wonder what Ford is telling me about their cars. You just go on the internet and you ask your friends who's bought a car recently, and you can verify all that stuff, right? I don't know what I was talking about. Okay, there's a question back there. The gentleman that's still using film. Good job.
I'm going to go dramatically in a different direction. What machine learning technologies are you most excited about at the moment?
Well, I'm excited about things that replace the repetitive, redundant tasks that I'm doing all the time. I mean, if you've worked for 23 years as I have, you amass a gigantic library of images and things, and half the time seems to be spent, where did I put that thing again? Like, what did I call that? Was it in this folder or that folder? And so I've actually paid my 12-year-old son to go in and catalog all my images. So instead of it being called 147-3445, he has to call it Compass. So that is something a machine should do. Humans need to be free to do the more creative thinking, connecting those dots, and not doing the mechanical. So anybody that creates technology that saves human beings from doing those really low-level tasks, I love and I embrace. Obviously, I don't want Skynet to happen. I'm not looking for the hellfire to come down upon us, okay? Or the Matrix. Yeah.
This is almost like automatic keywording for images.
That's just one aspect of it. Just pattern recognition, I think. We can use the computer for that. So when somebody browsed this, what are the 17 other images that they browsed that were relevant to that search? So help me brainstorm, mind map with me. Think of stock as a creative brainstorming tool and not just a product. That's why I was mentioning think platforms versus products. Like, how are you empowering people? How are you building community around that? So what's happened is it becomes too transactional. I have an image, you have a need, give me money, I give you image. There's got to be more to it than that. And that's where we've seen the biggest growth on our own channel and what we're doing. Okay, another question.
So I was interested in the advertising is dead
Yeah.
kind of comment. A few years back, there was the same perspective on publishing, and it was dying, truly. But publishing now has sort of redefined itself, reinvented itself, and now, by some estimates, is being touted as, you know, a great new future hope. I'm curious if you see anything like that coming for advertising.
I know you won the award. I was surprised when you came up because I was like, there she is. Oh, and then I realized we're at a stock conference, of course. Okay, so are you in publishing yourself?
No, I'm actually in image technology.
Okay. I'm going to challenge the notion that publishing is roaring back. Every publisher is getting slaughtered. Every newspaper is going out of business because they haven't figured out how to jump the curve. We all want news and information. They just can't give it to us in the way that they want. I recently met with a publisher in the Philippines. She created basically like the LA magazine of the Philippines. And she's like, Chris, help me. What is going on? I tried everything, right? So new models have to be invented. We love to consume, but we need to kind of adapt to the changing of the times. Now, here's the interesting thing. People are watching less TV, but they're streaming a ton of content on YouTube. People stop going to Tower Records to buy music, but they're also streaming from Spotify and iMusic or whatever it's called, right? They're doing that, so adapt to that. Apple just stepped in and figured out the model to help people. Make it easy. And then others followed suit. So I'm not quite sure. Now, what's interesting is there's a democratization of money and resources and platforms, which I love, I wholeheartedly embrace. So instead of a few networks controlling all the money and the eyes, there are hundreds of thousands, if not millions of networks created by individuals just like you who get a piece of that. So I don't know. Sorry, go ahead.
You kindly shared your revenue figures with us. I assume that comes from advertising on YouTube?
No.
Because if it does, you're in trouble.
No.
Instead.
We make a whopping $2,400 on AdSense revenue from YouTube every month. And we only turned on AdSense revenue 3 or 4 months ago, just as an experiment. And we're just doing that to see if it helps us with Google's recommendation. We thought, you know, in self-interest, those that turn on ads would get a little bit more love from YouTube/Google. But no, it's not from that. Do you want to know how we make money?
Yes.
Okay. Now, how we make money is there's lots of little buckets. Now, I was talking to a guy from Munich last week, and he was saying, I teach, and then I do service work, and it's been paying me really well, and I support my family that way. So I said, Robert, you're stuck because you have golden handcuffs. You think your life is to trade your time for money. That's what you're doing. But on the other side of you is you've done what I do, or have done, which is you teach and you give away information. Have you ever thought about creating a bucket of appreciation? He said, what does that mean? I said, well, when you make videos, oh, I get it. The free videos that get hundreds of thousands of views, that's bait, right, Chris? Like, no, you're thinking about it wrong. This is where I'm very particular about words we choose, because the words you attach to certain things make us feel a certain way. So when he said you make content to bait, there's a negative connotation that this is wrong. I said, you know, all those people who love your videos, who feel like they save time, you created no bucket for them to say thank you. Their bucket of thank you is a view, a subscribe, a thumbs up, or a comment. But if you actually created a product that shared your knowledge, basically you're selling information, if you did that, they would thank you. And that's what people do with us. So we have over 600 people who agreed to donate $500 every single month. That's the lowest amount. Some are 25, some are more. For what? Not a Patreon campaign, not for exclusive access, just because they want to say thank you. We have over 200 members that are part of a pro community, which is a private group on Facebook. They like to say thank you $150 a month at a time. So there I do a call with them once a week. But really what we've done is we've created some products in the education arena that people pay us for. They range from $29 to $4,000. Okay? Here's the crazy part. Almost all of that content has already been streamed on YouTube for free. Because our mission is actually not to create a product company. It's actually to disrupt education. I have 2 boys, 14 and 12. Kind of late for them, but I've seen what the education system does to create thinkers. I see them all the time in my college class at Art Center. Something has ruin their creative spirit. They keep telling me about all these supposed rules about creativity. I said, who taught you that? Well, the system taught us that. They taught us that if we stand out, we get punished. They taught us to get along, we must go along. So what I want to do is change the education model, because I've done the exact exercise I've told you. Who are our users, the stakeholders, right? Teachers and students. I want to serve both. I want to create the most dynamic platform for teachers to teach so that they can actually pay what they're worth, that they make money while they sleep. And I'm telling you, it's working out pretty good so far. So if we do this right, our mission is actually not to make more money necessarily. It would be a byproduct of us totally breaking the system. So that's how we make money. Sorry, I'm way over time. Did somebody give me the get off the stage, Chris moment? No? Okay, one more question? Let's wrap it up. Yeah? Well, I'll stay here as long as you guys want. I just don't want to overstay my welcome.
Any questions?
No? Fantastic. Then we're done. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.